Great.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Good cozy.
Yeah.
I'd say. It's kind of crept up on it, sweetie.
Oh, you didn't like the phone? Sure. You didn't like the phone?
Her first probably, I haven't seen it.
And everybody could look at it.
Stay there. Okay, the first,
Yeah.
first item on the agenda is the, approve the minutes from March fifth. Does anybody on the board have any questions about those? You good? No? So I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from, the March fifth meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, minutes are approved. The first item is the performance bond for two sections of Sierra Reserve. And these are required by the special permit. I'll throw it over to Sean to summarize the values. They were calculated by Langen and verified by Sean. So you want to add,
Sure, I'd be happy to, Mr. Chairman. So there's two things kind of at play here. With Tuxedo Reserve, it's a little unique. As you know, they have a special permit that was adopted by the town board. The special permit has some requirements relative to bonding. And then it also goes back somewhat to your code, specifically your subdivision code. The purpose of the performance bond is to secure the completion of on-site and off-site public improvements, as well as some of the common area improvements. Under your subdivision code, this board, as you've done in the past, you have the ability to set the term, the length of that bond. Back to the special permit indicates that that bond should be evergreen. And the way we've calculated this is, the developer's engineer Langen provided an engineer's estimate. I reviewed it, we went back and forth several times, and ultimately we came to, two final numbers, which I'll give to you. For the Commons in Quail Road was $13,099,500, and for West Terrace, it was $7,694,200. I circulated that calculations yesterday, and I don't know if the board has any questions for me on what was provided or on the bond itself.
anybody have any questions on those? I have one. If we know, or if Langen or Lennar knows that the costs are running high, does the town have the right to go back and say the bond has to be increased by X?
I think what would happen procedurally is, as I indicated, your subdivision code allows you to set the term of that bond, 1 to 3 years. I think on Metro R Services, you recently set it at 3 years. Both the special permit and the subdivision code allow the applicant to come back and look for reductions as work is being done. So the typical process would be when they come back for reduction, we take a look at everything and to see if there's a significant rise in cost. And if there is, we just wouldn't make that reduction, or to reduce the size of that reduction for the completed work.
But in addition to a reduction, can we actually increase it? Do we have the ability or the right
Yes.
to do that?
Under your subdivision code, you do. I defer to Kelly whether that portion of subdivision code is applicable.
It is.
Okay,
So you do.
so we're gonna do the 3-year term?
It's up to this board how you feel. I think a project of this magnitude, a 3-year would be appropriate.
So anybody have any comments or questions about that? So this will be 2 motions, right, Kelly?
You can do it as one.
We can do it all as one? Okay. So I'll make a motion for 2 performance bonds. One for $13,099,500 for the Commons, and $7,694,200 for West Terrace for a term of 3 years. Second. All in favor? Okay. Let's clear that.
I have a question which I should have asked earlier, which is
That's okay.
when does the time start? 3 years starting when?
A good question.
Yeah, I believe it's this evening.
Okay.
Okay.
And the next one is the ARB approval for the commons. Again, as we've said a number of times, and Kelly has sent out some information about that, our board's role is very limited in what we can do. It's very atypical from an ARB perspective for anything regarding Tuxedo Reserve. So we had a presentation at the last meeting for the commons. We did make some comments. There have been some changes made as a result of those comments. So the first thing, I think, Brad, you look like you're ready to talk about them.
Soon as you're done, Mr. Chairman.
I'm done.
So good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members and staff. See you all, we all had a good holiday weekend. So we did make a comprehensive submission a few weeks ago, addressing both the board's comments at the last meeting as well as the comments in the NPV memo. So I hope you all had a chance to review it. What we thought we would do is rather than go through each item, we've picked a couple of them we want to highlight. If you both have any follow-up questions or if you want us to address any other items, we're obviously happy to. So Ashley.
So one of the questions that came up at the last board meeting was regarding the staircase that connects between the street and the parking lot in the back. So we have provided in this submission a site section. You can see it further, to give it a better idea of how this would connect. We did provide additional detail on the lighting as well. So in this site section, as you can see, there would be pendant lighting coming down from the ceiling that matches some of the sconces on the buildings. One of the other big questions that came up was regarding the screening of rooftop mechanicals. So we provided a section of that screening, so you can see the rooftop mechanicals would be provided in the center line of a roof, and this is a difficult section. So they would be all along the center line. And then as you can see on this diagram, because of the way the roof is designed and the way it's set down, you would not be able to see the mechanicals from the street level.
That looks good.
There will be drainage in it. We did provide the materials samples as well, was one of the other questions.
Yes.
These are lifting
Should we
them
pull
up.
up one of the elevations? So
Yeah.
You can see, I'm just telling you which building it is.
We can start with,
You recall there's two different kind of
there's building
styles,
15.
right? If there's more the contrast and then the total building.
And then here's building 14.
Okay, so contrast, tonal, so for both the tonal and the contrast color palettes, if you will, there's gonna be a like a brick, well, maybe potentially brick, something like this. Well, this actually comes in a thin or a actual full brick. This is the thin if you could show, but it's, a very warm masonry color. So that's, in this building. Oh no, 15 is just the contrast palette. So this will be the entire kind of facade. It actually is this brick. So.
Are you
Pass it around.
using full bricks or the slice?
Our construction manager has strongly advised to use, oh yeah, watch out for the sample of the
Got it.
mortar. So modern construction systems, they're all four, otherwise you have to do full brick in front of the CMU backup that most systems call for. They prefer the thin system. I still think there's an opportunity to selectively use, and that's why we like this color, because it comes in both. So if you want to do a soldier course somewhere or other detailing, you can do that. So provides us the flexibility.
It's this style, based on way modern construction.
It's brick veneer,
Difficulty
it's
with this
still
stuff
brick,
is the
it's just a
corners.
brick veneer and you can't tell the difference.
Yeah, you can't tell the difference. I mean, it's just basically like a brick that's cut.
Actually, yeah.
So you just don't have to build with the thickness.
Okay, so this is the contrast, excuse me. So here's
That's all right. I'll hold this to you now.
because this will be for both. So, next we have, so there's some selective precast elements throughout the The project, so that's like here, like in the window at the top. So this would be potentially what the precast looks like. And then for the, the dormer floor, this would be a hardy panel. It probably wouldn't have this, but we can only get this color with this, texture right now. It'd probably be a flat, version, which we will show you for building 6 as well. And then for the like AZEC trim on the, selective areas around just the trim. And for the like storefront aluminum, the color, we're thinking something like this.
So the AZEC will be that color?
Yeah, exactly. So now for the tonal, okay, so for the tonal buildings, which is building 15. So yeah, 15. So on building 15, so the idea is that the same brick will be just at the ground floor, and then above, this would be at the top floor, excuse me. Actually. So the majority of the, base of the, I guess for the first 2 stories between the ground floor commercial and the top dormer floor would be this lighter, but still warm, hardy panel. And then at the top, this shows the texture that we intend to use would be on their dormer floor, a little more contrast in the hardy panel. And then here, they're gonna use the same, aluminum storefront color here, this like blackish, it's actually called black brown, but it reads more blackish. And then the AZEC trim would be something, again, just more tonal, and less contrast as opposed to the kind of heavier contrast going on at the core. As you'll recall, buildings 14 and 5 are at like the real center, and as you slowly feather out from there, we're trying to get lighter and less masonry, as was originally contemplated in the special.
So I'm a little confused by the color application of the hardy board.
Okay.
So is it lower level brick
Yes.
and then above that, the lighter color?
Yes, as seen here.
Okay, so the lower level is the brick, and the 2 above stories are the lighter hardy board, and then the one top one is the darker color.
Yeah, it's easier to see here. This is how. This is building 6. And so here you can see the dormer floor at the top with kind of this, the more contrast. So the majority of the building will be, I'll just put this one front.
Okay, so are the verticals around the window also the darker hardy board?
It will be like a hardy panel type thing. We weren't able to get a sample, but it will be the same contrast tone.
I think it looks really good. It makes it look better.
I'm glad you like it. Yeah, it's it's gonna be.
I wouldn't go that far because I'm really not happy with the design guidelines, frankly. But that is not in our purview, as we all know now, unfortunately. But at least the color contrast gives it a little bit more articulation and depth. So.
Are all the roof colors and materials the same on
Yes.
all the buildings?
As currently contemplated, this is a sample of the roofing material.
And every building will be identical.
Yes.
I like the color palette.
And the buildings to come in the commons, they'll be the same also on the roof?
I mean, assuming they still produce this material, and we can get it all, it's all intended to look, homogeneous. Homogeneous? Which do you prefer?
Homogeneous.
Both are so.
That's not a positive thing, so I'm gonna say it.
And in terms of the roofing, we want consistency.
Well, I like the consistency of all the color through the whole palette all the way throughout. There's some continuity to it. I like that. When the all the windows are gonna be black frames.
Better add that.
Yeah, that's the current, intent.
Yeah, on this side.
So does anybody have any questions about any of these? No? Valerie, you did a review of this. You want to go over your?
Yeah, so we had a number of comments the month prior. And the applicant resubmitted revised site or revised ARB plans, and they addressed pretty much all of our comments at this point. So now what they're proposing aligns with the landscape and architectural guidelines. The one thing, there are still a couple remaining outstanding landscaping plan updates that need to be amended, and I believe the draft resolution that's before your board refers to this, our memo, in terms of the condition of resolution. And it's just really, at this point, just updating a couple of their planting lands, dealing with plant counts.
So those additions, Kelly, could be incorporated into the final site plan before I sign it, right?
Yes.
You also, Valerie, came up with a question about the commercial space square footage, which
Yes,
didn't agree with the resolution.
that's
Yeah.
correct.
And
You know, it's timeless.
are you pretty confident that your number is correct?
Well, so I think we talked about this last month, the site plan amendment,
Isn't it
and
extremely well
we,
the
and we
surrounding
noted the question with the commercial space as well, of that change in square footage, so. I mean, that's up for the applicant to respond to that, and I thought they were gonna come back at some point for a site plan.
Well, that amendment is also included in this ARB approval tonight. Brad, do you, or,
So with the unit count that I think we're finalizing, the questions about the commercial square footage.
right,
There was
51.
some minor
51,530 versus 53,994,
Right,
which
that's
is
the difference between the two.
Valerie's number.
So.
Well, you could get back to us and we can incorporate your final number, whichever it is, into the final resolution.
Yeah, I do need clarification on that, because I have 51,530.
I was gonna say, Mr. Chairman, if somebody in the audience actually wanted to just see these, they can't see them from behind. If they want to just take a quick peek. If anybody wanted to come up and just take a quick look at what was here. I don't know.
We could
Does
just
anybody-
turn them around.
Yeah, why don't we just turn it?
53,994.
Yep, what's the difference, like, how did you get that from the 50? The only person.
The sunset.
Yeah.
Curious.
So this is the third one here. Back.
We're down here.
Because previously it was 51,530.
Right.
And Meg, this is the one, this
What
is the one that
changed
falls
for
right.
it to be the 53,994 for this shift?
If you want to get back to
We'll
us
get
on
back
that, whatever happens, we can incorporate that in.
I think, I mean, in practice, I think there's a few jiggly jobs in the building, and now these are, but affecting the mezzanine square footage as well, but.
And the other thing in this amended resolution of the site plan approval, it's increasing the number of housing units from 327 to 336. And I think we all agree. I think we all agree on that, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay,
And that was always the correct number, it just as a typo.
right, the last time around, okay. And this architectural review board approval is just for buildings 5, 6, 14, and 50, correct? Right?
Yep.
And Sean, you don't really get involved in this, so.
I don't, Mr. Chairman, but this is also amended site plan approval, and I just have one recommendation.
Sure.
It's not a condition, but, so you originally conditionally approved a very large set of plans for the site plan. The applicant has made some modifications to some of the sets within that site plan. So rather than have like two partial sets floating around for the building department, when they review it for your signature, if the applicant can make one comprehensive set and send that into the building department, and I only just need electronics, I just need them to kind of, take out the sheets that are outdated and then just make one set, so that we have an accurate copy, and we're not jumping back and forth between plan sets.
Okay. Does anybody on the board have any other questions about the site plan approval, the amendment and the ARB? So I'll make a motion to approve the amended site plan and the ARB for those 4 buildings I mentioned.
Do you want me to review the condition?
Okay, yeah, good idea. Why don't you read that? Thanks, Helen.
So I had a couple of minor revisions to the resolution, really just clarifying what this was for. Like the chairman said, that does not include buildings 1 and 4 or the maintenance building. It also does not include the recreation area and playgrounds. Then scroll down. You did receive the GML report from the county planning department. It recommended that this be a local determination. That was on March 18th. And the specific conditions are, this approval shall be subject to the special permit approval from the Town of Tuxedo Town Board dated November 22nd, 2022, as amended from time to time, and the satisfaction of all applicable conditions that may be contained therein. This approval does not approve the construction of any housing units located outside of the Commons and Quail Road. Prior to the signing of the ARB package / renderings, the applicant shall comply with the applicable comments contained in the memorandum of the town planner dated February 26th, 2024, to the satisfaction of the town planner. Prior to the signing of the plans, the applicant shall comply with the applicable comments contained in the memorandum of the town planner dated February 26th, 2024, to the satisfaction of the town planner. That's the right date. Okay. B, submit the plans to the town engineer for a final engineering review of the plans. The plans shall not be signed until receipt of a letter from the town engineer indicating that the plans submitted for signature are in proper order and in compliance with this resolution. C, offer to dedicate those portions of Quail Road and Brattle Trail Road that are proposed as public roads for highway purposes. Such documents shall be in a form acceptable to the town attorney. D, revise the plans to assign Brayburn Road and Wharton Road classifications shown on the road hierarchy plan. E, provide an all-way stop control at the intersection of Crooked River Pass and Quail Road pursuant to the memorandum from AKRF to the town of Tuxedo regarding Crooked River Pass and Quail Road intersection site distance dated November 7th, 2023. Revise the plans to improve the driveway to the proposed office trailers at the intersection of Quail Road and New York State Route 17 and provide signage to the satisfaction of the town engineer. G, revise the water demand and wastewater generation and capacity calculations to the satisfaction of the town engineer. Number 5 has changed slightly. In accordance with Article 26, bonding of improvements of the 2022 special permit prior to the issuance of any building permit and prior to the commencement of construction or disturbance of the project site. The applicant shall post the security in an amount acceptable to the town and in a form acceptable to the town attorney to secure the completion of all off-site and on-site public improvements and on-site common area improvements required in connection with the work conditionally approved by this resolution for the Commons and Quail Road and limited thereto. Bonding for buildings 1 and 4, the recreation area and playground, and the maintenance building will be determined upon receipt of conditional site plan approval for those elements. 6, it shall be the responsibility of the applicant to maintain the roadways, including removal of snow and ice, until such time as the roadways is accepted by the town as a public road or accepted as a private road by the homeowners association. Number 7, in accordance with Article 23 of the 2022 special permit prior to the issuance of the first certificate of occupancy for a residential unit, the applicant shall create the Tuxedo Reserve Homeowners Association. Number 8, prior to the issuance of any building permits for buildings 5, 6, 13, or 14, the applicant shall A, provide proof of filing the subdivision plat with the Orange County Clerk's Office to the building department, except that filing such plat shall not prevent or delay the construction of Quail Road. B, provide all required easements, declarations, and or licenses to the town in a form for filing with the Orange County Clerk's Office, subject to the satisfaction of the planning board attorney, for example, snow storage, drainage, stormwater, access, amenities, open space, conservation, etc. 9, prior to the issuance of any certificate of occupancy, the applicant shall provide a will serve letter from Orange and Rockland Utilities. 10, prior to the issuance of the 20th certificate of occupancy, the applicant shall provide and install an emergency access road at Mountain Road. Such emergency access road shall comply with the New York State Fire Code. Number 11, the applicant shall comply with all mitigation measures outlined and set forth in the Town of Tuxedo Planning Board involved agency finding statement dated January 12th, 2023. 12, blasting is not proposed as part of this site plan approval. Should blasting be required for the development of Quail Road and or the Common, the blasting plan shown on the above listed plans as amended by this resolution shall be followed. In accordance with Article 6 of the 2022 special permit, the applicant shall offer to dedicate that portion of Quail Road and Brattle Trail that is within this portion of the project to the town of Tuxedo. Such offer of dedication shall be filed with the Orange County Clerk's Office, and proof of such filing shall be provided to the building department prior to the issuance of building permit. Such dedication shall be subject to any and all utility easements and/or license agreements approved by the town board, including but not limited to water, sewer, and stormwater. And number 14, in accordance with Article 3D of the 2022 special permit, non-residential uses shall be limited to those uses identified on Smart Code Table 1.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. I believe we received the 239 from the county today, actually.
I received it in the mail today.
Okay, so
I
that's
thought
taken
maybe
care of.
previously.
We have had a public hearing on this prior to tonight, a few months ago, actually. I don't feel another public hearing is necessary. Does anybody feel we should have another one? Okay, so I believe that takes care of everything. So I'll make a motion to approve both the amended site plan approval with those changes on the number of units and the ARB issue for the comments in Quail Road. A second, all in favor? Anyone against? Okay. So,
For the record, James is recused on this application.
okay, that takes care of that one. These next two are the next two sections of Tuxedo Reserve, North Ridge and Upland Park. And they're both kind of in the same status tonight. Lennar did submit a very large group of drawings per our guidelines. They were on time. However, it was so enormous that our consultants just weren't able to review it in time for tonight. In my discussions with Mitch, we came to a very amicable agreement, I think, that approval, we will strive to approve these two from a site plan and ARB at our June meeting. And I'd just like Mitch and Brad to confirm that expectation.
And that it was amicable, yes.
Mitch?
We're only confirming amicable. I said, and that it was.
Yeah, thank you.
You think it's amicable? I disagree.
We didn't even argue yet. Thank you. Yeah, yes, of course, Mitch Newman here on behalf of Lennar. We appreciate that, and our goal is to present the communities, the sections tonight. And then if the board desires, schedule it for a public hearing and hopefully work towards a June approval. And we'll, of course, work amicably with you and your professionals to get us there in the right time frame.
And we will, later on, we will schedule public hearings on both of those.
Sure.
So, Mitch, you can give us our first look at these two.
Yeah, where are those the, right, just want to see where.
And Mitch, let's go through these one at a time. Do your
Yeah.
thing on the first one. We'll ask the board for their comments and thoughts, and then we'll go to the second,
Yeah, so, well,
if that works.
yeah, let me tell you what I was thinking, and then we can regroup. What I was gonna do is give you just a quick overview as to the two sections that we're talking about this evening. And then, just recap where we are generally with the community and then the different parts. And then turn it over to Chuck to go through the engineering review, and then turn it over to Lisa to go through the architecture. So we were gonna do them kind of together, but talk about them separately in each section. But if you prefer, we'll do first North Ridge, then,
We'll do the overview and then,
Okay.
then one at a time.
okay, all right, so we'll do that, all right. So again, Mitch Newman with Lennar, thank you for your time this evening. So the presentation you have board in front of you is one you've seen in the past. It's kind of just a big overview, and it shows very clearly the different neighborhoods. And just by way of background, so we've talked about, and you've been kind enough to grant your approval for West Terrace. West Terrace, you come in off of Route 17 at the bottom, come in on the north entrance. West Terrace is the first community to your right, a mix of towns and single-family homes, and thank you for your assistance with that. And then as you come around the bend, you come into the Commons, and that's the section we just talked about tonight, where you granted the site plan and the ARB approval and previously the subdivision approval for the first 4 buildings. And we started, I've told you before, with West Terrace simply because the site work had started there. So it was easy for Lennar to get started with the West Terrace section. So now we've taken the next steps forward and submitted our subdivision and site plan and architectural plans for North Ridge, which again, as you come up Quail Road on the north entrance, North Ridge, you make your first right-hand turn and it's 72 townhomes. And as I said, Chuck will go through the engineering aspects of that, and then Lisa will go through the architectural aspects of the 72 townhomes. And then as you continue up and around and through the commons, you come to Upland Park, which is a mix of townhomes and stacked townhomes. And that's 235 homes. And again, Chuck will go through the engineering, and Lisa will go through the architecture. One thing I did want to point out, in Upland Park, if you look back at the history of the community, Upland Park was 236 homes. I just told you it's 235. So the change is Upland Park consisted of, and partially still consists of, 2 different type of townhomes, a stacked townhome and multifamily. And multifamily, the easiest way to think of that is very much like the commons, like an apartment style building or a condominium style building. So what we've done is we've eliminated the multifamily section of Upland Park, increased the stacked townhomes. And that number then came, it wasn't now it's 235. So we lost a home. I promise you, we will make it up along the way in one of the other sections. Don't worry. In developer world, lost a home never computes. So we'll catch up to it. And if you or your professionals are wondering, can we swap out stacked townhomes and multifamily? The answer is yes, and I'll let your professionals guide you. The special permit does allow for us to swap homes if it's in the same zoning type and limited to certain sections. So we're okay from a procedural standpoint, but as the chair mentioned, once your professionals have a chance to dig in, I trust they'll confirm that we're on the right page procedurally. So we're really excited to be moving ahead with these next sections. And just in the big picture, where are we going next? I know we still have some homework to do to get through these sections, of course. But next up is probably Mountain Lake, which is at the back end of West Terrace, another single family section. And then we are working diligently on plotting out the age restricted section, Bluffs, Winding Hill, and East Terrace. And while they might not look like they work together, they will need to work together because of some of the changes in some of the homes. So we have to push and pull from various sections, and we're trying to do that comprehensively before we come forward. But if things break well, we would think Mountain Lake would be next. Let's just say later in the spring, probably more like the early summer. And then the next section's probably starting to proceed in the fall. So we're making some fantastic progress with your cooperative assistance. On the outside agency front, I think I told you at the last meeting, we submitted to DOT for the Route 17 improvements as well as the 2 traffic signals. Traffic signal will go at our north entrance as well as our south entrance. We have preliminary comments from DOT, which are favorable. They said, sit tight, don't revise any plans. Final comments are on the way, but so far it's trending nicely. We submitted also to DOT for a culvert that is actually in Sloatsburg that crosses Route 17. It's very important for drainage for Sloatsburg. So that's in at DOT also, have not received comments yet. And we have our applications into Orange County for the subdivision approval for both the Commons and Quail Road and West Terrace. We haven't received comments back from Orange County yet on those, but we're hopeful that we'll get those soon. And there's some other various agencies that were in for various applications that relate to this, and everything's trending fine so far. So with that overview, I'd like to turn it over to Chuck and let him kick off the engineering testimony. We'll start with North Ridge, then let Lisa step in. See when we're back.
Oh, no, it's fine. It's fine.
Some of the weakest one. And take that.
There's just like 80 in it. It does, I just moved it.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Chuck Uchig with Langen Engineering. My team is responsible for developing the civil engineering drawings that go along with these different communities. Here with me tonight is Christina Zalezi. She actually leads the team, and if you all ask me any questions I don't have the answer to, I'm going to turn and ask her to help me out. So this development looks very much like the prior version of it. The road configuration is almost exactly the same. The point at which we come off Quail Road is the same. And generally the configuration, this kind of looped road with the units around the outside and the inside of the loop is pretty much what it looked like the last time. We have improved the grading, and we have done a little better job with the road profile. And what that's allowed us to do is, in this center area here, you'll see it on one of the other boards, there's about an acre, just less than an acre, of land that we've been able to leave undisturbed. And the prior version had all parking in that area. So we thought that was an improvement to this plan. And I can actually show you that one. You won't like it. So this is a single access point into the site with a large loop. There is a secondary emergency access that goes out to Mountain Road as part of this application. So we do have 2 access points in and around this for adequate fire protection.
That's that piece that's going.
That's this
Okay,
blue
okay.
dotted line. This roadway design is very similar to the other ones that we've shown you, that being it's a 26.5-foot wide road. In fact, this entire system is 26.5 feet wide. Unlike Upland that I'll show you, it's very different. But the 26.5-foot wide road allowed parking on one side, an adequate width to accommodate two-way traffic. And not assigned parking, but general parking, obviously, where you have a string of driveways, no one's going to try and park. But that's the configuration of this road. The topography, kind of interesting. This road generally climbs. The reason we have this long leg is to get by this very large Army Corps wetland without disturbing it. So that kind of gets us into the site. And then this loop is very consistent. If you look at the grades, it's around 530 or 540. And I know that doesn't mean a lot to you necessarily, but compared to 600, which is in the middle. So basically this is on the crown. And so your perimeter units on the outside have an exposed basement, and most of the units on the inside, do not. There are 72 units. There are 2 stories, 3 bedrooms, 2 car garages, and 2 parking spaces in the driveway. Again, very similar from a site engineering perspective to the other units that we described in the other areas, but Lisa's going to talk about these as having their own unique nature to them.
Is it parking on both sides of the street? Just one.
So just one.
And I know you can't block the driveway, so.
So basically it can switch back and forth. So you could park a car here, but not here. You may come around to here and you could park a car here. So it's very much like the old fashioned rural neighborhoods, right? We have 26, 28, 30-foot wide roads that are curbed, and you can park on either side of the road. Everyone knew not to block both sides, right? And doing it this way, we reduce the amount of pavement markings we have, we reduce the amount of sign clutter that we have, and it becomes a very kind of familiar way to navigate a road without having all that. So I think the idea of having this 26.5-foot wide road that accommodates that is a really good idea.
Is there parking on the, I'll call it the access to this cluster?
Yeah, there's no limitations.
So you can park all the way down to
You park
Quail.
all the way down. The idea with the 26.5 feet is that you have room to have a car parked on one side and still be able to get by in both directions.
So that'll be only one side parking.
Yes. Sidewalks around the entire perimeter on one side of the street, coming out to Quail Road, consistent with the other communities. Is the sidewalk going all the way down?
all the way down. And it intersects the sidewalk that's on Quest. So this starts to create the network of sidewalks connecting the communities.
Is it on the side where there's parking or the other side?
So we don't prescribe, we haven't up to this point. Maybe we'll get a comment that suggests we should in some areas, but right now, we don't necessarily prescribe which side of the street you can or can't park on. You could park on either one.
As long as you're not opposite,
Yeah.
you're gonna have cars doing this.
You can.
I understand that on the loop, but on the, where there are no driveways over here, I think.
So
maybe
we could consider
pick a side.
having no parking signs on one side on this stretch of the road. That's fine. The intent is only for the cars to be parked on one side. We have plenty of parking. Every unit has 4 spaces. So there's a generous amount of place for people to park, right? If you're coming to an activity here, my guess is what's going to happen is people are going to come in, someone's having a party, and they're going to start parking on this side of the road coming back out because they
Yeah.
couldn't find a place where they went to.
Right.
Again, having some signs that restrict it to one side, I don't think is a big issue for us. If it feels like that will keep it more defined, that would be fine.
Will there be overnight restrictions during the winter for parking on the street?
I mean, not necessarily,
Yeah.
but we would leave that up to the homeowner association. That these will be private roads that we're talking about for this neighborhood. So, they would create the rules that if they want no cars on the street overnight for snow protection, then I would think we could add that to the documents. If the board is trending that way, that would be an acceptable idea to incorporate into the documents. So we would add a section that would talk about, as Chuck said, you can only park on one side of the street, first of all. And as I'm thinking about it, as I'm answering your question, I'm trending towards yes, in the event of a snow, no overnight parking. Feels like the right move for the association.
The other thing we tend to find associations will do is create their own idea of what the right speed limit is. So they'll post a 15-mile-an-hour, 25-mile-an-hour speed limit posting on these private roads. And that too gets kind of dealt with in the HOA documents. I mean, the slope of this road generally is around 2 to 5%, so there aren't real severe changes. There are a couple places where there are, does get up to 10%. We have a changing grade here and a changing grade here that get us up from the elevations of 500 to the 530 to 550 that I mentioned. So there are a couple places, but generally around the loop, the slopes are not much more than 5 or 6%. There may be a 7, but typically that's the range that they're in. Sewer and water services the entire development, obviously, both for fire protection and domestic water. In this case, the sewer system actually by gravity feeds out to 17K, which was part of a prior approval before my time. That's the one thing that's unique about this sewer system. And then so this is a copy of the grading plan. And this just really, I'm just showing this to you to illustrate where the primary stormwater management systems are. There's 4 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are all have been sized and analyzed to control post-development discharge rates to the less than pre-development rates. They both account for both water quality and water quantity in their controls.
Isn't this Upland Park? It says Northridge.
No, Northridge.
Okay,
I put Northridge grading plan up.
okay, all right, sorry.
So again, you can see where the contours are real close together. We were talking about 10% slopes. Where they're more spread out, you see less. And all the developed areas, and this is about 23 acres of disturbance as part of this development. The current SWIP and the stormwater management contemplates 2 phases of construction. Initial construction is the primary road in,
this stormwater management system, which is a little over 2 acres, and then about 20 acres to do the earthwork that's necessary to build the roads and create the paths.
On the center of the circle, what's the elevation difference between the center of the circle and down where the homes are?
The high spot is 620. And the elevation along this stretch of road varies from 570 to 580.
So 40 to 60.
So it's 30 or 40 feet.
I was just wondering if there'll be a runoff problem from that high point into the homes around there.
So we've got a perimeter swale that we're gonna put in at the base to handle that. And we probably, based on some prior experiences that we've had, we will probably actually put something like an under drain in that swale in order to help us prevent that problem from occurring.
I see.
Yes. The other thing that, I think, so this is the landscape plan. We're planting just shy of 300 trees, primarily street trees through the complex. And then around the stormwater management basins, we're planting a variety of appropriate vegetation for stormwater management basins. The lighting for this project, there are street lights. They're 13-foot high, which is kind of the standard that we've been using. You will notice that they're spread out a little differently. They're not as close together as you might first expect. And that reason for that is because there are lights at each of the driveways. So the primary street lights are as you come in at the intersections and where you have these gaps to supplement the light. So if you look at the lighting plan kind of in detail, you'll say, well, it doesn't seem like there's enough lights. And that's because what's shown on the plan are the street lights. What's accounted for in their spacing is the lights at the driveways.
Those will be under the control of the homeowners or the HOA, those, the
So
secondary
the
lights.
street lights will be
Okay.
part of the HOA. The driveway lights will be the individual homeowners. You can turn it on and off. It is. It has control. The other thing about having these clustered units and lighting, that they give off light, right? There's light out to the windows, there's a light over the front door. So there's this kind of light that comes from this cluster of units. And so not to create hotspots and really not to overlight it, that's why we've kind of spread the lights out the way the lighting consultant has done. And that concludes my kind of overview of this development, Northridge. I'd be glad to answer any questions. Otherwise, I'll have Lisa talk to you about architecture.
Just real quick, that, you said the road was how wide?
26.5 feet.
All right, because, typical parallel, like a side parking spot is 8'6" to 9 foot wide. And therefore it leaves how much?
Now, if it's 8 foot, or let's call it 8.5, so the math is easy.
So
You have 18 feet left, you have 2 9-foot lanes.
okay, because the averages are like between 9 and 10 foot for a lane, right?
So
So,
strike lanes.
and I'm
typically are-
okay with this. The only problem I have is I think, my thought is, it should only be parking on one side, because what happened, unless it's marked where there's pods where they can park, that allows people to maneuver. Otherwise, suppose in this complex here, people come to visit on one side, they're parking on the other, it becomes a one lane through the middle. Because people aren't necessarily
Not
gonna
gonna do a
stagger,
slalom.
they're not gonna stagger, right? Cause they wanna go, they're visiting somebody, so they're parking right across and you have a one lane, so.
Okay.
I'm just saying, so if we do single side, we can maintain 2 lanes at all times. And then we just don't have the headaches that we might have.
So let us come back
It's
with
not my
a
decision.
plan to do that and a way to control that we think will be efficient.
Yeah, I
That's
just,
fine.
listen, I think it's still gonna be a lot of parking.
It's more than you will see in a lot of these kind of developments. I
Absolutely.
think the idea of having a wide enough road to park on one
And I
side
just
is a
think
great
it's-
idea.
I just think it's safer to have it. on
Okay.
one side.
Chuck, let's take a look at that, but there's some logic
That's
to
my thought.
follow.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I would just like to say, I do think there's something about the less lighting and the less designation of where you should park to a small community that, makes it feel more like the environment it's in than having signs and more lighting and whatnot. That's just my perspective of kind of respecting the nature that exists there.
Maybe we can find a balance between those two.
Well,
Not too many
I'm
signs.
usually
and-
on the outs here.
There is
so
a
it's
safety
okay.
aspect of it too. You know, if the roads are all dark,
Yeah.
cars
We
more
have
over.
to- we have to do a slalom.
Okay. We'll add that to the list of comments to find a way to address.
I race a giant slalom myself.
Good.
You're good, I'm good.
I don't wanna slow you down on it. I want just, if it could be a signage issue, that's easy.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, board professionals. While I've attended many of these meetings, I have not formally introduced myself. I am Lisa Higgins, the Director of Forward Planning for Lennar. And I'm just going to run you through what our planned homes are for this particular aspect of the neighborhood of Northridge. So as Chuck had already discussed with you, there are 72 homes within this neighborhood, and they're in that circular fashion where we have in-ground basement conditions and walkout basement conditions. These are 32-foot wide townhomes, and what you're looking at is a four-unit building and a 6-unit building example of one of the multitude of varieties we can do with the different elevations within these building strings. Within this collection, we have 4 home types, and they range from 26 to 2,800 square feet. Each home contains 3 bedrooms and 2.5 baths. We have an unfinished basement with the option to finish it. In the event that the homeowner does wish to finish it, it would come inclusive with a rec room and a full bath on that lower level there.
None of these are rentals? They're all
No, these are
purchase?
for sale, yes. So this is another version of just a different color selection, and you can see the side entries there on those end units and that in-ground basement condition, where in this condition, those decks would be optional. If they chose not to have the deck, we would do stairs to grade. However, in the walkout condition, as you'll see illustrated here, those decks would be standard to give them the ability to have that outdoor accessibility from their main living level. And these are just quick overviews of the floor plans. You'll see as we go through them, though briefly, we do have options for the owner suite in the upper level versus the first floor owner suite that's indicated here. And those floor plans that have the owner suite on the second floor, which we'll get to next, also have the option for this sunroom extension here to add that square footage to that lower level there. And our color packages, we likely will choose 2 to 3, and they will come from the approved color packages that are in the design guidelines. We do have the samples upstairs, which we did present to you during the West Terrace, but happy to do it again next month if you want to take another look at them. And that concludes the architectural presentation.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. You noticed we both have our name tags on? We were joking about that, well, I'm sure we've talked about it, that's a Lennar staple. Adam, of course, has his name tag on. We have to have our name tags at all times, except when we go home and then your spouse looks at you and says, what's wrong with you? Why do you still have your name tag on?
Oh, we can't see
You
yours.
can't see yours.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'm just ruining the
Might as
whole
well not
thing.
have
Everybody to memory is showing
Yeah.
back the stage.
All right, is this better?
Let's correct that for the next meeting.
It was duly noted.
When I put, all right, just, you wanna have some, so when I put the name tag on the jacket, it doesn't stay. The magnet's not strong enough. We'll go with that.
Talk to the engineering department.
Yeah, we need stronger magnets here. All right, thank you for throwing me off my game. So next up, we're gonna move back to Chuck, talk about the Upland Park engineering. And I do just want to build on one thing Lisa said. It's really exciting because the North Ridge now not only introduces another home type with 28-foot wide townhomes to build off of West Terrace, but it's also now we've introduced the master bedroom on the first floor option. So it opens up a whole new opportunity for folks that they might want to take advantage of our age restricted section in the future, but some people want to still live in a family style neighborhood. So, I'm sorry, Lisa, I can't, I think it's fantastic. So I have to throw my 2 cents in and take my revenue for the name. Alright, Chuck, no name tags?
No name tags.
Okay, go ahead.
So this will be a very different presentation and a very different description than for Northridge. Because they're very different kind of communities. You know, in Northridge, there's basically a single unit type. It's kind of set back off the roads. It's at the north end of the development. This is off the edge of the commons, one of the most active areas right in the community. This has a variety of units. This has a variety of road types. I think the one thing that's probably has in common, and all the communities here will have in common, is managing the topography in a way that is sensitive to the land, but yet allows us to develop it in a way that works for Lennar and Tuxedo. So there are 3 separate types of units. There are 51 2-story, and I had to write this down because I wasn't going to remember. 51 2-story townhomes, typically 3 bedrooms, 2-car garage. So you've heard me say that. There's 64 3-story townhomes that also are 3 bedroom, 2-car garage. And then there's a new product that Mitch alluded to, and it's 120 stacked homes. And you can differentiate the stacked homes on this plan from the others. So the townhouses, whether it's 2-story or 3, the difference is in width. The stacked homes really are different, and they access those from the back. So there's an alley in which the driveways come off of. So the presence for the stacked homes is a stoop and a front yard and the street. And that leads us to having to have different street types with different widths and different parking requirements. We found with this network of roads that created kind of blocks, the idea of making sure that we controlled parking and we understood road widths was very important. So you can see as these colors change, that's a change in the road type. So green is what we've been talking about, which is 26 feet wide, 26.5 feet wide with parking. Purple is 24 feet wide here. And then we have red, which is 28 feet wide. And you'll also note that in this plan, we designate parking areas. So it's not, you'll see it striped here. It's not random. I shouldn't say random. That's not the right word. It's not undefined by striping. Here we felt like it was important to stripe it so that people knew where to park, just because of the nature of this layout. So we have a variety of road types. We have the stacked townhouses, which create a very different feel and presence on the streets. That's about half of the density here. So this row through here are stacked. So if you come down the street, there'll be no driveways. And you come off of Bridle, which is, again, kind of one of the major streets. You won't have all those driveways coming off. So that is a engineering traffic kind of smart way to deal with placing those without having all those driveways. We added to this a small pocket park. It's a community area. It's intended to have some walking path and some open area and benches and just kind of a park-like feeling. It's just less than an acre in size and has been added to this and was not part of the prior plan for Upland. There are multiple access points to this, but the topography is pretty interesting. Again, very similar in terms of there's not a lot of drastic slopes here. The site slopes from east to west in a northerly direction. So as I move my hand across this, we're actually going up and we're going down and we're going back down. So climbing into the site through here, we have a little steeper slopes. In fact, there's a very short stretch here. That's a 13% slope, which is the maximum that we've discussed with your fire department about acceptable. And that was part of the prior design, so we're hoping it's still gonna be okay. But again, 10%, 13% here, there's a 10% climb here. Again, it's kind of just to get up to this site, and then these are much flatter and leveler blocks. Just because of the nature of them.
So it's down 13% down to that T there?
Yeah, so
That's a little.
this part of Quail
If it was
is the
snowy.
lowest part. And the differential between here and here is a lot. It's about 90 feet.
Yeah, I'm just talking about that.
90 feet vertically?
Yes, so this is at let's call it 450 along this stretch of Quail. And the reason that is because we're right up against the wetland, so we couldn't raise it too much. And then by the time you get up here, you're in the 530 to 540 range. So there's quite a bit of change across here as you go up. But then as you get into it, this is all fairly flat. Show you the grading version.
On the upper right, Chuck, between the two rows, it looks like a sidewalk. Is that what that is? Or
Say,
It's an alley.
what am I, say, describe it
That
again.
spine between the two sets of buildings.
right, it looks like
This?
Yes,
It's an
but
alley.
It's an alley.
It's where you enter.
That's where you go in. So the driveways for these units, here and here, so they're back entry units.
So you don't have to look at garage.
Right. So when Lisa shows you those
Finally.
units, it'll become clear what they are. So it's a 16 to 18 foot wide alley that the driveways come off of. And there's a garage in the back. So basically, as you look at these from the street, all you'll see is patios and the walkway out to the street. It's a very different feel than even some of the other townhouses that you have in this development that are, driveways, walkways off the street.
On Bridle Road, the houses that are parallel to that, the driveway access is from Bridle Road into the structure.
No,
Behind that.
so I'm gonna mark my own board.
Yeah, I'm kind of lost.
So this is an alley. And all the driveways for this row units and this row units
Oh,
come
I see.
in
Oh, I
this
see.
way.
Oh, so you
you're
can
sta-
drive in here, that's not.
You
just
can
a-
drive down this alley,
Okay.
right?
There's no parking.
No, it's not wide, it's just wide enough to get your cars going down and,
Calling. it an
To
be honest
alley.
with you,
There's enough room to make the turn to get
Yes.
in, I presume.
yes. And typically these are, we'll sign these as a one-way. We only want direction in one way, and it's 16 feet wide. You've got enough room to get your cars in and out.
It's not wide enough for two cars to parallel pass, though.
They could get past each other at 8 and 8. 8 is enough to two cars to pass, but
carefully.
yeah.
Without clicking their door handles.
And get a little snow that, well, so again, another reason why this is a
Two
great
homes.
concept, because it creates a very different presence along the street. We just manage the traffic a little differently with a one-way pattern.
And
Yep.
and right below that, that's an alley behind those houses there.
These here,
Yeah,
these here,
there's that back alley.
there's a back, this
That's the
gray
back alley, yeah.
is basically another back alley. So along this street, no driveways. Along this street, no driveways. Along this, no driveways on one side. So many of the units here in this area, the driveways are internal to the blocks. It's an old traditional
Yeah, it's really great.
development concept that when I was a much younger engineer, we used to do down south, to be honest with you. And it's a traditional kind of a layout that gives you a very different presence on the street. It's more complicated. It's a little more expensive to build, to be honest with you. But I think Lennar has found it to be a very good product for them.
For snow removal, you'd probably have to truck it out of there, wouldn't you? Doesn't look like there's any,
So the alleys are a little tricky to plow.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah. we keep going the way we are with global warming, I don't know that we're gonna have to worry about snow removal at all. But yes, it's a little trickier in the alleys.
Another
Drainage is a little trickier in the alley. We'll have to be careful about the drainage because we can create kind of an isolated area that's hard to get the water out. So there are some engineering things that we're more careful about when we design these, that have to be looked at.
Another
Versus kind of-
question, why the different road design? In terms of the width?
I think it was, so the width isn't too, the real difference is the green give people an opportunity to park on the street. The rest of them are pretty much the same in terms of width. They're 24. I should take that back. So your major roads, right, are 26 or 28 feet wide. That's understandable because of the volume of traffic, right? The other distinctions here are between 24, purple, 26 and a half, the green. And that is only about providing places where you could park on the street. Because at 24, there's no place to park on the street.
Right, so I guess my assumption was that it would seem to make sense that they're consistent throughout there, but I'm assuming there's some either grading issue or setback issue or some technical issue that you can't add that extra 2 feet to the 24-foot wide streets.
I think it has to do with the type of units. So take this block, for example, right? You think about, we've got parking we got driveways on both sides. There really is no place to park a car in the street.
Because of all the driveways.
It's all the driveways.
Got it.
So if you look at the purple sections, for the most part, I know you're gonna point at this one and say, how come that one isn't wider, right? But that's the idea. These are, I don't wanna call them cluttered with driveways, but they're a lot of driveways with no opportunity to park. Therefore, not making the road wider to where maybe between a unit, somebody thought they could park a car. We're trying to be
I'm
discouraged.
sure
of that.
somebody's gonna make the distinction between 26 and 24 when you go from 26 to 24, but I understand what you're saying.
It's a little subtle.
I think the fact that there'll be a lot of driveways and really no opportunity to park will be the defining factor there. You may be right that between 24 and 26 and a half in this area, you may drive this all the time and never even notice that there was that difference. Other than that, there's not a place to park. I know you have a full agenda, the stormwater, the drainage, all those things are consistent. We've accounted for, there's a well here on this site that we've got the well protection area designated for and we stayed out of. But really the way this is set up, the road hierarchy, the unit type, what makes this a unique kind of a different area than we presented so far. And with that, I'd be glad to answer any engineering questions you might have.
You might have.
No.
And I'm gonna let Lisa talk about architecture again.
I was not going to do this one first, but because it is kind of exciting, I'm going to move to the stacked townhomes first. And then I can share Mitch's enthusiasm in North Park here in Oakland. So we do have a total of 235 homes in totality. But the exciting thing about this neighborhood is we have multiple products that we're offering within the community, which hit different price points, which hit different buyer markets. So it really does open up a level of versatility. This is our stacked townhome. So this is the one that Chuck was spending a lot of time on trying to explain. As you can see, you get this nice streetscape from the front here because your garages are in the rear of the units. So you just have your front doors, your walkways, and then you have this nice green area in front of these homes. And while they are designed as condo style, they live very much like a townhome. So we have a color-coded interior layout to give you a better idea of how these are designed. I'm sorry? Oh, thank you. So here's a picture of the rear and the sides of the units. As you can see, each home gets its individual garage. So there are two homes within each, what we like to call a stack. And within these, you have entry to the individual units. So if they were going to park in their garage, they can go right into their home. They have that access, or obviously they have their personal front door access. So this is the exciting part about the stacked townhomes. And we have it color coded so that you can easily identify the areas within the interior that belong to each of those homes. So this blue area is what we call the lower level unit. That's approximately 1,300 square feet, and it has 2 bedrooms and 2 full baths. One of those baths is on the main living level, you'll see here, and then you can get into the access through that garage area there. Or you have your front door that takes you right into your living space with your dining area and your kitchen. And then as you go up the stairs, the sleeping area is in this second floor toward the rear of the units. Then in the front of that second floor, you have the main living level for what we're calling the upper units. Those are approximately 2,100 square feet, and they contain 3 bedrooms and 2.5 baths. So very comparable size to a townhome. And then on the third floor, it fully belongs to that upper level unit, which is where you get that additional square footage. You'll see they have a nice spacious owner suite. They have their private bath. They have their 2 bedrooms, their full bath, and then their laundry up in that third level area. So hopefully the colors kind of help to differentiate that, because I know for me, it was very difficult until I was actually walking these units.
And none of these are rentals.
All of the homes that we'll be showing are for sale. So the next home style that we have is very similar on the exterior elevation to the stacked townhome. This is our 3-story townhome. And these, and these are approximately 2,400 square feet. And they have 3 bedrooms, 3.5 baths, because that lower level we always give to the homeowners as a finished space, which is consistent with what we would do in our basements, that rec room and full bath in that lower level. Just makes it a little bit nicer for when you're entering in to not have an unfinished space in front of you. We presented these in our initial presentation for West Terrace. So these are what we would call a reuse from that neighborhood. And the interesting thing about this that we're really excited about is we did get some feedback initially from the board, especially where it pertains to this 4-unit building here. Our interior units were both aligned to look this way with the horizontal siding. And the feedback we got was it's very hard to differentiate those interior units. So we created a secondary elevation within the interior space to allow better visual representation of the separation of each of those units. And obviously we've carried that over here to Upland and would continue to carry that through in other neighborhoods as well.
These have 2-car garages.
These are a 2-car garage, that is correct. And because these are slab, but the main living level is on that technically second level, we would provide a standard 10x12 deck off of that main living space, again, to give people that immediate outdoor access from that living level. But you do have your sliders on the bottom there, so they are able to access the rear from that rec room as well. And here's a quick look at our floor plan. You can see here the 2-car garage, the finished rec area in the back with the full bathroom. Then you have your main living level, which is consistent of your kitchen, dining, living, with this tiny little pocket office, which we found to be very widely accepted with a lot of these work from home positions that people are taking now. And then up here, you have your main living or your main sleeping quarters consisting of your 3 baths and then your 3 bedrooms and your 2 baths.
Any questions on these?
We still have one more product if you want to
Okay.
wait for them. Yes, we have a lot of versatility in this one. Thank you. So our final home type offering for this particular neighborhood is our 28-foot, 2-story townhomes. And as you can see, they are housed in 4, 5, and 6 unit buildings. Oh, I'm sorry, these are approximately 2,500 square foot. And they consist of the 3 bedrooms, 2.5 bath, with the option to finish that basement, which would again offer a rec room and a full bath. We do have 2 foundation conditions. We have the in-ground where we are showing that deck, but it would be optional in that particular condition. And we have the walkouts where we're going to offer the deck as standard to get them outside from the main living level, but they'll still be provided access from that basement with those sliding doors there at the bottom. And here's a look at what the optional finished basement would look like with that finished basement space, the full bath. And then you have your first floor here. You get the 2-car garage, a nice little fireplace. We have this fantastic island that we offer in this particular home style that is very popular with our buyers. And then your second floor consists of your bedrooms, your bathrooms, and within the owner's suite, you have this nice little sitting area that you can create your own little space. Any questions about the architecture?
I want to make a comment, and it's really more for Michelle. I think you're the only board member here, at least that I'm aware of.
She's not on the town board.
Oh, you're not on the town board anymore. Oh, okay, well, I just,
You can still have.
yeah, I, in those homes, which are predominantly a large part of them, where the front face is 2-car garage doors. And typically the front door is set back. And the garage doors are painted a different color than the rest of the house. For me as an architect, I find that off-putting. I think it would be really nice if the garages, and I understand why the garages, there's an efficiency, it's a very trendy style now, so I get all that, and it is what it is. But it would be nice if the garages could be minimized and the front door pop. And this is just a question of paint to me. Whatever paint you're using or type of hardy board color you're using. The garage doors are not going to be hardy board, obviously, even if it's brick, paint it out so it looks like the bricks, so you're not going, wow, here's 2 garage doors. Just a general comment I have, and the last time I made this comment, I was told that that's not what the guidelines asked for. And since this board unfortunately doesn't have any input in that, I'm just raising it again.
So it was requested that we do make those garage doors complimentary. And since we are doing some white trim fit outs, we felt that the white garage doors would be complimentary. And then we did add the hardware to add that certain level of separation and give it a little bit more of a decorative look and feel. And that was at the request of the town board as
No,
well.
I understand that, and
Those are
I
white
think that's the
garage doors.
natural reaction,
It's the shadow.
but
Yeah,
it's
it's-
not welcoming. That's my opinion.
If it looked actually like that, I'd like it better. As opposed to that being a shadow on the white. Yeah. if it
Well,
was-
I think I can't tell from here. It looks like there's an overhang on the garage. And
Yes.
There is.
It also, they were that barn style boards instead of straight across, it looks like commercial garage. But that's,
these are actually the better, I think, designed from the other ones we've seen where they don't have that, just a flat garage.
no, I didn't.
But the garage is
I didn't say
painted.
a flat one, I meant a barn style that had cross bucking on it.
Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying.
Which is kind of brings up that look instead of it looking commercial. Listen, I don't want to be rocking the boat here, just, I don't know if this is the juncture to be doing this or,
Well, I think it's past.
so, right, so that's what I'm saying, so.
I mean, which is what I'm saying is past too, but
Well, they have entertained some of our comments on.
yeah, I see that.
I do agree with what was said about the color. I think if the color was more to that matching of the siding, it kind of, hides it a little more than accentuates it, but
Right, exactly.
it'll stay cleaner too.
So all of these garage doors are actually white,
Like,
They are.
despite, despite how they look.
yeah,
They don't-
because if
that's
you
what I'm
look,
saying.
you can see.
They
it's
look
got-
like
that's
this, I like
shadowing
them.
that you're seeing
Yeah.
You
there.
can
the
see the
bottom
shadow,
side.
but it's
Yes.
still kind of misleading. And
It's
yes,
not
it's-
intended to
yes,
be,
I like
so
the
I do
shadow color
apologize
better.
for that.
Yeah, that's what
And we
I'm
did
saying.
address that on some of these window spaces, because with the thickness of the lines, we wanted to make it very clear what our color intentions were. So we do have the nice white windows with the 6/6 grid pattern, and then how our decks will look with that composite wood here, and then the railing, the black railing.
Again, this was all worked over and approved and everything already, so we're chasing.
Right, but it wasn't, it was done by the town board as opposed to the architectural review board.
Well,
And
this
that's
is not
where
the
I have an
architectural.
objection, and that's where I'm just making some of these requests as a professional who knows what this stuff should look like
But this
than
isn't
what the
the
town
ARB,
board.
right?
I'm sorry?
This isn't the ARB though, right? So-
Yeah, it is.
No,
Well,
we are the.
Not,
This
yeah,
is-
okay,
Yeah.
But we
but
have
it's
very
not-
limited role.
that's right, but
in
this is,
Project.
so what are we acting as tonight? Planning or ARB or both?
Both.
I mean, this has already been approved though, correct?
No,
Well,
nothing
the
is,
guidelines.
Some Chinese menus, but we can't choose what we wanna eat, we can just choose forks or chopsticks.
the planning board has not approved any of these two yet. Okay, we're hoping to do that in June. But from an ARB perspective or an architectural perspective, a lot of these things, as we've said a number of times, have been predetermined by the town board through an exhaustive series of meetings. Yes, we didn't have input to that, but that water's over the dam, so. So any other questions on this?
I guess I'm gonna make one more comment about that.
Sure.
We're just talking about color here. We're not talking about making crazy changes. So I'd love to know if there were a vehicle by which we could speak to the town board to get them to adjust the guidelines, which is gonna make the product look better, in my opinion.
There are two town board members present, so I think they've heard your concerns. If
Okay.
they would like to bring it up at a town board meeting, they have that opportunity.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So before I make a motion to schedule the public hearings, I just have a couple of quick questions. Any news on the will serve letter? I know it's in the works.
How I'm doing, for the record, Adam Bosberg, Lennar, Parent Board. I have been in weekly conversations with them and they are in, their main distribution design right now. And they haven't given me an update on the will serve, but they do have multiple teams working on the design, so.
So there's no snags at this point.
There's no snags at this point.
Yeah,
What
hopefully there won't be.
what are they designing?
So from what I've been told, there's two different teams. There's a team that does the main design, I guess, the distribution, and then they have another team that does the design to all the homes and to the individual, like,
Transformers, a local transformer.
yeah, I guess it's like a primary and a secondary, I guess, if you would look at it like
The
that.
kind of stuff you'd see pole mounted in
Yeah,
neighborhoods, but you're gonna be underground, so it'd be an equivalent.
yeah. So. As soon as I have an update, you guys can.
I'm waiting for them to tell you they discovered they need to build a substation.
Knock on wood.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And this one's for Mitch. Are you keeping with your philosophy you mentioned a few meetings ago of build and then sell
Yeah, that's.
for the most part?
Yes, that's the Lennar philosophy, build, sell, close. Typical sales philosophy would be sell it and build it. It's our intention to try to get ahead of it and build it first. There are occasions when sales get ahead of construction and
Such a tough problem.
Yeah.
I know, these are very lucky problems to be able
Yeah.
to build it and know you're gonna sell it.
Mm.
So we're knocking some real wood here, not the stuff that you'll not.
I know you mentioned at the last meeting, you're pursuing, getting a sign out there coming soon or something like that.
Yeah, we're actually arm wrestling internally with our marketing department as to what the sign's gonna look like. And just so little peek behind the scenes, our marketing folks are flying up from Miami. That's our corporate office where they have the real fancy people. So they're flying up from Miami next week. All right, Lisa, now you're very fancy too. So they're flying up from Miami and we're gonna be here next Wednesday, which I think is the 10th, to take the corporate folks on a site tour so they can help us design our signs.
They're gonna miss the eclipse. They should come 2 days earlier.
I'm not inviting them to come any earlier. That's not- So we hope to have a coming soon sign soon, but we need a little bit more direction from the smart people in Miami. Do not tell anybody guys.
All right, so I'll make a motion now. Does this have to be for the public hearings or can we do it at one?
You could do it in one.
Okay. I'll make a motion to have a public hearing on our May 7th meeting for both Northridge and Upland Park. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I believe that's it for you guys.
Yeah, that
And
includes
for you
the-
guys, no new plans. The public hearing was just set on the plans submitted.
Correct.
I'm looking at you, Christina. I got
And-
you. Right.
And Valerie and Sean, you weren't ready for anything about this. correct?
No, Mr. Chairman, I'll get the board written comments ahead of the public hearing.
We'll take a couple minute break as the Tuxedo Reserve people.
Thank you.
leave.
Thank you very much.
Stand.
Night.
Good night. Good night.
Right.
why don't we get started on our final two items? The first is an amended site plan for, Watchtower. So whoever wants to, give us a little presentation on what you plan to do.
Sure, Evan Leslie, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'm an environmental engineer, licensed in practice in New York, a bunch of other states. I trust you're familiar with our amendment request. It's the sixth amendment. I noticed the fonts was really small on the drawings we submitted, so I did blow it up a bit to help. I can share those if you'd like.
Absolutely.
Oh, that'd be great. Thank you.
A little more copies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Same.
Yeah, same thing.
Thank you.
Right.
Isn't it?
Okay.
Bill had to leave, but there's still four of us, actually five of us, so, we still haven't finished. So.
Yeah, so as mentioned, hopefully you've had time to look it over. If not, I can entertain any questions about the specifics.
Maybe just highlight the changes, the additions, if you would.
Sure, there's 16 items on there. We actually went through and count them. 11 of the structures, notice, actually need building permits. We have permits for 4 from the building inspector. The one temporary tent mentioned there is over 400 square foot, so it's temporary. That requires a building permit. Regarding the screening, on the initial building permit, we did get a note that requires screening. We actually initially submitted a drawing informally for review that showed fairly high fence and quite a few trees. And then we noticed on the building permit condition that the screening specifically did not call for fencing. It only calls for screening. So that's why we pulled it. And you might have noticed the difference. So I guess that's about it. I counted in the plan there for the screening, 39 arborvitaes, placed about 6 to 8 foot on centers, staggered, running a length of 200 feet. This drawing I gave you is not to scale because I blew it up, but the one that was submitted is 1 inch equals 40. And that's, if you scale, it's 5 inch, gives you about 200 feet of.
Could you talk a little bit about what's going on in these temporary tents toward the back of the site?
Yeah, it basically, it includes the provision for, I think we can highlight it by construction. Everything that's being used there fall in the category of construction staging equipment, material storage, temporary office, eating, and restroom facilities. So the tent is more for the eating facilities at noon, primarily for our construction folks that will be working on the site.
Will there be food preparation there, or it's just where they bring their own lunch?
Yeah, I can speak for our past history. Usually it's not prepared there, it's brought in, but if I'm speaking out of turn, please weigh in. But it's prepared someplace else and brought here.
Question for you, it's 6,000 square foot tent, right?
Yes, sir.
And there's 20 parking spots.
Yes. We have transportation facilities,
Oh,
I think
so you're gonna be
was
bringing
cited
them to vans,
in
mostly.
in the impact
They
report.
won't be having vehicles, because you wouldn't be able to.
If, again, if I speak out of turn, please clarify. So I trust that describes, what we're thinking about in the amendment. The time period requesting, please, go ahead.
Question, the toilet trailers, they have their own storage facilities
Yeah.
on board,
Yeah, and hunting
so there's no
wagons.
waste, that.
No, hunting wagons would come at a regular intervals and clean them out. It's a unique term there.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a nice term.
I don't actually consider that funny.
Never heard that.
I couldn't think of any of them before.
Hey,
Those poor bees.
We've gotten an opinion from the town attorney, Howard Trotter, that, this staging area, temporary area, is a valid temporary accessory use. And, Kelly, I assume you agree with that?
That's actually not what is before you tonight. That wasn't what this was for. This was actually to amend the site plan to include this staging area temporarily as part of the site plan. Not considering it as accessory use under the zoning code. It's just being considered a use on the site plan that's only going to be there.
So we don't need the accessory use as a justification for this?
Correct.
Okay, okay. I have a few additions that I'd like to make to the resolution, and I will then ask the board for their opinion of these, and if they have disagreement with it, or if they have any other suggestions that we should add. I would propose that the facility would not be used on any federal holidays. I'm fine with the 200 feet of plantings. I'd like Kelly to have you incorporate that quantification in the resolution. 6 feet on center, I think is adequate. I'd like to define the height of those plantings. Again, Valerie, I'll look at you and,
I mean,
for a screening purpose, what,
right, well, I mean, it depends on what's available, 'cause a lot of times I know nurseries, the smaller size, so you might wanna.
well, I'd like to define that. I mean, if only 2 footers are available,
Well,
that's
no,
not
I mean,
gonna
not
be.
like 6 or 8,
I could imagine 6.
Yeah.
I mean, because, or you're screening from these people driving by in their cars, basically.
6 is a common.
All right, so we'll say 6 feet is our request. And you mentioned arborvitae, that's fine. I'm not a landscape architect, but I can say from personal experience at our house, the green giant arborvitaes are not touched by deer. You agree with that? I have a couple in the yard, and they've been there for 2 or 3 years. And over the last couple of winters, I've seen deer a couple of feet away from them, and they don't touch them,
And they grow fast.
and they grow fast. I believe there's another variety, emerald green. That's like a buffet for the deer. So, I would check that with your people, but I think the green giants are the way to go.
A great suggestion.
The food waste containers, there will be guys throwing things away. I would put a condition that they be emptied daily. There are bears in this area. Again, I live in the area. And I know there are bears there, and we don't need anything to attract bears. And whatever those containers are, it would be best if they were bear-proof containers, because your classic dumpster with the lid, I think we've all seen on the news, bears can get in there very easily.
I saw one climbing into one at Jesse's Bagel. Just pulled up, you get a bagel and the bear's halfway into it, so.
Doesn't even move. I've seen it sitting
there.
The ones in the park, they put little, blocks, real easy, just to,
Yeah.
I mean, a person could do it, a bear can't do it, but a person could.
Raccoons
Yeah.
I could shoot them for you.
And then, my final point is,
Do that with bears.
at the end of the 2-year period, that all of this stuff gets removed. And the area gets not exactly re-landscaped, but left in a good condition,
Or natural condition.
a natural condition. So that's my list. Let me ask, starting with you, John, if you
I
have.
agree, I would, with the comments are, very valid.
No.
Yeah, I agree as well.
Same here. All good.
Susan?
I'm good. I guess my only question would be, so I know some of this area was for the emergency vehicle turnaround. How will that be?
No, this is further up the hill. I
Yeah,
would
it's
say.
okay.
Oh, no, I'm
Right,
thinking of the next one.
Yeah, so a lot of, I know there was the emergency vehicle turnaround space. It looks like this might infringe on that, so I don't know if that was addressed.
So where's it, where are you referring to?
All along here, along this whole road was the additional emergency vehicle turnaround, right? Right up to the gate, remember there was.
Oh,
that
yeah. There was,
turnaround? Yeah,
yeah, and the final site plan, excuse me, in the approved site plan, there is a dead end right here to be able to,
so that this new stuff
Hammerhead.
isn't impacting that.
no, that
Okay.
will still be implemented. And respect to the landscaping, there was a landscaping plan previously approved by the boards on the site plan application. When this is over, those trees would be removed and that would be what was moved.
Okay. That was all I had, just the turnaround.
James? We don't need a, public hearing on this, right?
That's correct. You can determine that a public hearing is unnecessary under 9855.
Anybody have a problem with that?
No.
No public hearing? Okay, I think with that, I can make a motion to approve anything I left out, Rose?
Well, I did send the resolution, the draft resolution to the applicant. I don't know if I didn't see any comments from them. I just want to make sure that those proposed conditions are acceptable.
The draft, and thank you, Kelly, for sending the draft resolution. Now we reviewed it is acceptable. The conditions Mr. Bagno listed today are also acceptable.
Okay, thank you.
And just to note that this also allows those construction vehicles, that moves it from the end of May to August 30th, 2024.
That's that other restriction that we have.
That way you don't have to come back again in a month.
And that too is acceptable.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, I'll make a motion to approve this.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Approved.
Okay, thank you. I'm surprised before we said those.
One more to go. Almost there.
That's all right. Yeah.
I know, it's true.
It is. It is true. I planted one too.
And they live on the base.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, this is for the Kingdom Hall for Watchtower. And I know your team is a little bit different than the prior team that has appeared before us many times. I think you understand that we're not at the stage where we can make any decisions. It's a review for the board. We do have comments from our consultants. Have you seen those reports? Yeah. Okay, you do. So with that, you can begin.
Good evening. My name is John Montaigne. I'm with Freeman Peterson Engineers. We are representing the applicant tonight. As you said, this is just an introduction. We want you to know where we are, what we plan to do. The town board, I believe you may all know, is in the process of looking at the zoning on this particular property. They have a public hearing scheduled for next Monday, I believe. Because of the eclipse, I'm sure that's why they did it.
Well, that's when they have their meetings.
Keep everybody in the dark, I guess. I don't know. That was a pun. Don't take it. The property itself, though, is a piece that is adjacent to the project site that we were talking about before. It's adjacent to the AV project. So this is Sterling Mine Road. This is Sterlington that comes in, changes to Sisters of Servient that comes down and then goes out of Tuxedo into Ramapo and goes down to where the Sisters comment is. There's a new spa facility down in there that's using part of the old Table Rock, and there's also a nursing home that's down there. The property is about 56.55 acres, as you see here, now that it's been surveyed. On the north side of Sterling Mine Road, there's a small residential area that is off of what used to be the other extent of Iris Lane. Iris used to run straight through here, coming off of Sister Servant. That stub here of Iris is abandoned now because it was cut off when the road was reconstructed.
And you're not proposing to reinstitute that?
No, we're not going to, no, that curb cut connection, no, we're not doing anything on it. Then on the, obviously on the south side, coming off of we go right down, our property goes right down to the Ramapo border. There is an existing old structure that's on the site that was actually the carriage house for Table Rock a long time ago. That's where actually I shouldn't say carriage house, it was where the carriage drivers originally resided. And then since that time, it's been used for a number of other things. That is not a part of our project. It's just going to stay as it is. And our project is right in the center up here on an area that already has a good portion of it cleared. And then off to the west is another small residential cluster that you can see. And this is about 600 feet away from where we're proposing the building. So that's just a general context of where the site lies. So what we're proposing is a 5,317 square foot Kingdom Hall building and associated parking with that. There's 125 spaces. 5 of those are ADA compliant spaces at the front of the building. There's a small canopy drop-off area in the front. The building itself, I'll show you some of the renderings of that in a minute. Josh can talk to you a little bit about that, but I just want to go through the site design itself. There is an existing electric line that runs through this property that ran up Iris Lane. We'll be talking to Orange Rockland about that because there's a utility pole that we'd like to have relocated. So we're going to look at moving that line so that it jogs off to a pole here and then comes back just so that we get that pole out of the parking lot. There's also an underground storm drain that runs through there. Because of how we're constructing this site, we'll be filling this area. So we'll be raising the elevation at the end of the parking to keep that down in that 5%, 4.5%, 5% grade. And so by doing that, we'll be able to leave that storm line that's in there. So that's just going to continue. And what that does is it picks up drainage down on Sister Servant Road and runs it out to the existing drainage that's out on Sterling Line. Other than that, on site, we're going to have our own on-site well, on-site septic system. So that's how it'll be served. The well will be located somewhere up on the hill here in an existing area that's far enough away from where the septic is that we get significant distribution from that. We put a 100-foot radius on for the first image that Sean reviewed, but we are about 210 feet away from the leach field. So we believe we'll be okay, but we won't know that until we actually get into and start to develop the well and do our field work and our testing. But that's the concept of what we're looking at right now. Other than that, we're looking at, making sure that we comply with the landscaping requirements for the town. We've shown some just preliminary general ideas of what we're looking to do. Make sure that we have screening out to Sterling Mine Road. Make sure that we have screening actually down onto Sterlington Road and Sister Servant. And then we're preserving, the woodlands as much as we can all the way around the property. The stormwater management for this, the site grades from west to east, and we're looking at doing bioretention and other stormwater practices at the bottom, down in the lower area of the site. And we're preserving the woodland around it so that it's kind of tucked into there, and then we're going to landscape that. The bioretention will be also planted. So that's the site side of it. Are there any questions on that before I pull up the building so you can see what it's going to look like? We can always come back.
Can you show where the propane tank you're expecting that to be located?
So I'm not 100% sure that we have that picked out yet.
So we're working right now with the architect and the like. This is where we're currently proposing. It will also be behind a composite fence. So it'll be a privacy fence. That's where the HVAC units will be as well. So it'll all be within a privacy fence as well as landscape.
Is the parking lot gonna be lighted?
I'll let him speak to it. but
I'm
yes,
sorry, I
absolutely.
missed the question.
Is the parking lot gonna be lighted?
Yes, the parking lot will be lit. We use night sky compliant lighting. On
I didn't see
facilities.
any stanchions or anything.
Yeah,
that's
well,
why I
that,
asked.
the only drawing that I brought was just the
Rough,
landscape plan
yeah.
tonight. I didn't want to bring all of the drawing, grading plans, all of that, because we're still working through that. It was more just to give the board an idea of what we were looking at doing.
I have a question.
Sure.
And this is probably maybe more for the architect. It's a lot of parking and I'm sure it's needed. It's just strange to me that you're entering a site and you see this field of parking and then you see the building. Was there any conversation of thought of bringing the building forward and having the parking behind it?
So what drives that on this particular site is the topography.
That was really,
Yeah,
I'm not
that's
familiar with the site.
Really
so.
what drives it. As you come off of the main road coming off of Sterling Mine, the site continues to climb and climb and climb, and it continues to climb and climb and climb all the way as you go around. We purposely put the building on the knoll here so that we could get enough grading and drainage to come down through and work with the topography for our drainage for the property. If we had the building at the other end, everything would be flowing towards it from a stormwater perspective, and it would have caused us to have a lot more earthwork than we're looking at
Well,
now.
typically you're entering a church, you'd be entering in the front door, would be in the front of the building, and you park where the side tends to.
Right.
To me, that works out.
So, there were numerous layouts on this that
Yeah,
were looked
sure.
at, and this is the one that.
Yeah, I have,
from an
I have
engineer-
that out. I was just curious. How it all ended up in the front, but I understand the topography piece of it.
So this is a perspective rendering of the front of the building. And as Josh had mentioned before, all of the equipment is screened in an enclosure. That's what we had talked about. We have some other renderings that show that too. It's a one-story structure. We believe the architecture is very calm and contemporary for the area. It's set back. I think Josh can talk a little bit more about the colors on it, but it's a little bit of cultured stone. And the siding, I believe we're going to use a hardy board on this, and the lighting for it. I have some other elevations too, if you'd like to see those, I can.
I think it'd be nice if that whole front piece was the stone as opposed to broken up like that, but it's just a general comment. It looks like you're putting in some brackets on that roofing. Is that what those are? Those,
Some corbels.
Yeah.
yeah, very big ones. But I think that whole top piece with the stone, like the columns, would look much better.
Just
I don't know
for,
if it, just a comment.
just for the board's information, on a house of worship in the town, it does not need ARB review or
Okay.
approval.
Okay.
So.
Good to know. Still comment always.
How many parking spots are there?
There's 125 spots, 5 of them are 80.
5,000 square foot worship hall, so what's your occupancy in there?
It's just
So just for the record, my name is Josh Mosman. I'm working with Watchtower, JW Congregation Support. Kind of helps establish some of the distinction too, because we are a united organization. But you guys have the privilege of world headquarters right here.
Yeah.
Most of the projects we do around the world keeps you busy. Most of the projects around the world are places of worship. In fact, we have 5,000 just in the US, well over 5,000 just in the US. So that's what JW Congregation Support does. We're working with Watchtower here because that's the legal entity that owns this property. And of course, again, we're a united organization. So just to answer the question on the parking and the occupancy, we're still working out the plans. These are early schematics. Our goal is around 250 seats. That includes around 230 in the main auditorium. And then there'll be a second meeting room that will be in line of sight. That will be about 250 seats. And there's your audit.
I know you have Kingdom Homes and I believe it's Airmont and West Nyack. and I've ridden past those, and they appear to be a little smaller than this, or a little larger than this, rather. Is that true?
Yeah, and thank you for bringing that up, Mr. Chairman. You mentioned that at the TAC, and so we did a little bit of research. The one that you have in Fairmont is actually what we would call a double auditorium. So this is a single auditorium. You'd actually have two meetings going on at the same time, and it's well over twice as large. So it's a very different usage of that facility there.
So this is in fact smaller.
It is. Well over half.
And you gave us an idea of when the maximum traffic flows are. Do you have multiple services per day or just one per day, or that's not determined yet?
And that's a great question as well. And just again, for the planning board's edification and understanding. So, Kingdom Halls and congregations of Jehovah's Witnesses, we purposely keep them small for the emotional, spiritual, physical welfare of the congregants. We're able to know how they're doing. So as they grow, they're reviewed, organized, and then split. So this location right now, we're aiming to have 3 different congregations that will be organized to share that same auditorium. They each will hold one scheduled midweek meeting during the evening and one scheduled weekend meeting during, usually on Sunday, but not, it's up to the congregation itself. We do have preferences that we provide to the congregations, and then there's parameters that we establish, such as they can't start earlier than 9 a.m. on the weekend. They can't start later than 6 p.m. on the weekend. And general preferences during the midweek, Tuesday to Thursday, around 7 p.m. That helps us establish the traffic numbers that you were bringing up.
Is this gonna facilitate the folks up on, Long Meadow Road as their place? Because there's a load of people that live up there. And if they just take the people that go to Dottie Audrey's on Saturday, you're not gonna fit them in here.
We need more places like Dottie Audrey.
But I'm saying that up on Long Meadow Road, it's a large facility. There's a lot of people that reside there. I'm just saying it based on that.
So all of those people who already
It almost
reside,
seems undersized.
already attend
They're different halls.
different Kingdom
I
Halls,
get it,
different
I get it.
auditoriums. Now, again, as things are organized, some of them may attend this specific location, but the intent of this specific building wasn't for along the.
Okay.
So on any given day, and maybe again, you haven't determined this yet, is there more than one service on any given day?
There's a potential on the weekend.
Okay.
And again, one of the parameters is they have to have a minimum of 45 minutes in between each meeting. Each meeting's about an hour to 45 minutes long. And then they can set the time, no earlier than 9, no later than 6, but at least 45 minutes. We have to allow good flow of traffic in and out without creating congestion at any location. That's for the safety of the congregants as well as the community. And that's one of the reasons why some of them choose to use Saturday, because it spreads out the actual, the meetings, so they're not too stacked on a specific day.
Why don't we go to our consultants' reports, and then the board can ask any questions that might be prompted by.
So, so just to let you know, the way we approached the memo, because I know there's a lot, I know there's a position before the town board. I know Kelly and is working with the town attorney, town board attorney, I don't know how to do the best, the secret process and stuff, and also the rezoning. So our memo really focused only on the site plan, and then also focused on the assumption that the site was going to be rezoned to R2. So one of the things that we just wanted, a couple things we wanted to know, that there is a lot of information still missing for this application to be complete. We specifically noted items missing from section 98-58, section 98-58. And one of the things in particular is really a zoning table associated with all the bulk requirements. We also noted that a lighting plan is necessary. We kind of raised the issue of like a traffic study. That's something that, the board needs to decide if they want to do. And one of the things that we just want to raise now is that the net lot area needs to be calculated, which means there needs to be a calculation of steep slopes and the steep slopes deductions, and that will then have a domino effect of how some of the other bulk requirements are calculated. And then also parking is something that the board is gonna have to ultimately determine in terms of the number of spaces that are required and stuff like that. So basically, I think right now, the application still needs more information in order to have it complete, and then we can do a more updated review.
Which is fine. That's one thing we were saying, and we're here just to introduce tonight, and then we'll bring a more detailed submission to everyone. And we appreciate the comments early too. Thank you.
Thanks, Valerie. Does any board member have any questions on any of Valerie's comments? No? Hey, Sean?
Yeah, so I just want to start with the zoning. So there's probably some question about that, right? So the applicant is in the conservation zoning district. The applicant is proposing a community benefit facility, and a place of worship falls under the definition for community benefit facility. That's not allowed in a conservation zoning district, in your conservation zoning district. It is allowed in the R2. So the applicant is petitioning the town board to amend the zoning so it changes this parcel to the R2. So my review comments are based on that proceeding. The applicant understands they're proceeding at their own risk. Zone change for the town board is really discretionary. I haven't had any discussions with the town board, but if they do, again, I've structured this as if the applicant received a favorable determination from the town. Assuming they do, this would require site plan and special permit under your code. As the chairman indicated, ARB approval is not included in this application. Special permit, there's certain criteria for a special permit. I've asked them to, in future submissions, identify that criteria and indicate how they're complying, right? In terms of the bulk requirements, I agree with Valerie, we need some more information on the bulk requirements. You provided some of the initial setback requirements, and you're definitely compliant because of the large size of the parcel. But there are some other requirements that need to be shown on the plan. Interestingly, for a place of worship, the code provides this board with the ability to waive certain requirements on the bulk table, right? So normally if somebody didn't meet a setback, they'd have to go to the ZBA. Not in this instance because they're a place of worship. The one potential exception that I think I see on the plan right now is there's a large retaining wall proposed. That's not necessarily a bulk requirement, I don't think. That's a separate requirement. I would defer to Kelly, but your code allows a 4-foot wall in the front yard, and I think they're proposing about an 8-foot tall wall. So that may need to go to the ZBA for a variance. There was a little bit of discussion about parking and circulation. In terms of what they've indicated in the narrative is 150 peak trips in and 150 peak out, which I presume corresponds with the meeting. But there's only 120 parking stalls shown, so there seems to be a little bit of a disconnect in that. I don't know. I've asked them for a turning analysis and for New York State Fire Code analysis relative to whether they need aerial apparatus, less than likely, or that they have 150 feet around the building for fire apparatus access road. Lighting, Valley already talked about. Water and wastewater, they've indicated that they likely need permits from the Department of Health and DEC. In terms of the water, the applicant indicated 100, 200 feet. I just want to make sure the board's clear on that. If this is determined by the Department of Health to be a public water system, and they have specific criteria for that, they would need to demonstrate that they had ownership of a 100-foot radius around the well, and that they control land use activities within 200 feet of the well. Right? They likely can comply with that, again, because of the size of the parcel. Then there's also additional requirements the Department of Health has relative to separation distances. So since the well is upslope from the septic system, the separation distance would have to be 100 feet. So that I just didn't want any confusion on the 100-foot and 200-foot. Stormwater, they exceed the 1 acre threshold, so they're going to require coverage under the Speedy General Permit from the DEC, which is going to require them to prepare a SWIP. Utilities, you mentioned the relocation of the utilities. There's a town code requirement for any new utilities or modified utilities to be located underground. I don't see any provision in the code to allow this board to give you a waiver from that. Perhaps that's something if you wanted to put an aerial overhead that you could get a variance from. Seeker, I'm going to defer to Kelly, but I do believe that because they exceed 2.5 acres and they're next to Sterling Forest, it is a type 1 action under Seeker. That doesn't necessarily require you to require a DEIS. So defer to Kelly how to proceed with Seeker relative to the town.
Steals my thunder every time.
Okay, Sean,
That's all I have on for applicants have any questions for me.
any questions from the board on, Sean's comments? So regarding seeker, Kelly, as I understand it from our earlier discussion, we can declare ourselves lead agency, but the town board has the ability to override that if they so desire. Is that correct?
So what I would recommend is that the planning board declare its intent to serve as lead agency. I'll circulate those notices. I'll have a conversation, with Supervisor and Howard and see if they would like to object to the planning board serving as lead agency. And then you can consent to the town board serving as lead agency. The reason I suggest that you declare your intent to serve lead agency is that right now there's more agencies that are involved. And I want to make sure that there's a coordinated review that's performed and all of those agencies are included. So the applicant really only has to go through one seeker process rather than uncoordinated reviews with other agencies. As Sean said, it is a type 1. He took my thunder. It owns the property right next to this, and this is more than 2.5 acres. It does require GML referral. I've coordinated with Deborah, and when it comes time for a public hearing, which is required, then it would also need to be referred under GML double N to Renpo and to Rob. So for right now, I think that the board can make a motion to declare your intent to serve as lead agency and to type this as a type 1.
Okay, I will make a motion per Kelly's description.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then since we do need a public hearing for site plan approval, I'll make another motion to schedule a public hearing for our next meeting on May 7th. Second.
Public
Okay.
hearings,
Pardon?
2 public hearings.
I think the town board has to have their own on the zoning issues, is that?
Yeah, they need to hold a public hearing and they should be adoptable. They have to be done before you make any approval.
This
So
would be separate. This is a different application.
No, I know,
Right, but-
219.
Yeah, well,
Okay, that's all I'm saying.
okay, I understand.
If that's okay, that's.
Sorry, we were sideboarding.
No,
I just
that's,
didn't know if you could
yeah,
do
I-
that.
you can have
Yeah,
two
there's-
public hearings.
Yeah, there's no problem with that.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. You just can't take action until there is a law in place that permits this use in this district, in this area.
So we approve the public hearing for this
You
seventh?
have a motion, you have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Kelly, from a zoning perspective, is there any segmentation concern here?
No, and that's the reason, so segmentation's under seeker, and that's the reason I suggested having a coordinated review. I have reached out to Howard prior to, there's a town attorney prior to this meeting, I haven't heard back. But he knows that this was my intention for this evening. And in terms of any spot zoning concerns, that's a town board issue, however, it is not spot zoning, in my opinion.
The one thing I might offer as a clarification is the applicant did not petition the board for the rezone. The town board is actually taking the rezone on their own accord. And since we did not petition them, I don't know that we would have a segmentation issue because the town board is moving on that rezoning independent of, I don't know.
No, they have to be considered as like a same project under seeker.
Okay.
So that's gonna proceed as one.
Yep.
For the segmentation issue, but you're correct. It wasn't a petition that was submitted. The town board is choosing to take this up themselves.
Does any of the Watchtower team have any other questions as to direction, where we go next?
Yeah, I think just some clarifications. We saw what Sean had mentioned about the retaining wall, and we believe that we can probably terrace that, and we have some additional grading or topography that we had taken out in the field, and we'll be able to, I think, comply with the requirement for that, so we won't need to worry about a waiver or any issue on that part of it. Fully understand the table. Part of our hesitance of doing more on that table was we weren't really sure where the zoning was gonna go, which category we were gonna be in. So we're proceeding now on the R2, and we'll update everything accordingly, so. And we really appreciate the fact that you took your time tonight to hear us.
One question for you. That first comment you made was to the retaining wall. Is that correct?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. I was gonna say that was the one thing I didn't address that isn't something that could be varied, so you
Right.
would need a variance from the ZBA, but you're correcting it.
Yeah, that would be our intent, is not to have to go to the ZBA for variance on that. We'll work the engineering out.
And I appreciate the patience of the Watchtower team. Sorry we had to keep you here for a while, but,
John, I do have one quick question.
Sure.
I may be ahead of the game here, but in the materials, there was information about the construction hours listed from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Is that something we'll talk about as we?
we can
Go
address
further.
that as
Okay.
conditions when we go.
Okay,
They would have to comply with the requirements of the
Okay.
code, which don't start that.
that's what I figured, but thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just one last thing, similar to your last applicant, where you scheduled a public hearing, I'd recommend that this applicant not submit any new materials, and the reason is that the building department has these materials, the public may want to look at these materials, it would be difficult for the public if something came in the week before the meeting and they come in with a comment on old plans, so I would say that no submission is accepted, unless there's anything the board really wants to keep that public hearing.
You guys okay with that?
Well, it makes our job easier. However, there are a lot of things that being that this is an initial package, I think there's a lot of things we really have to address to make sure that package is complete for the review.
Do you want to
That is your call.
delay the public hearing a month till June? Then you could submit new materials. It would allay concern of Sean.
Mr. Chairman, if I just could add one last piece to that. You know, the public hearing is your opportunity to hear from the public on this project, perhaps before the applicant develops more detailed plans. For the public hearing, maybe you'd like to hear from the public first and incorporate the public's comments into those second revisions, third revisions.
What he said.
That's why he makes the big bucks.
We can always extend that public hearing to the next week. So we will have it on May 7th. Okay, I think we're all set. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
And I'll make a motion to adjourn. I don't think anybody has a problem with that.
Bye.
Okay, thanks, everybody.